Oh, wait a minute. We muted? No, we're not muted. Are we muted? We're not muted. Okay, we're not muted. Awesome. This is so great. We didn't botch this. It's awkward now because I kind of narrated that exchange. But anyway, what's up, everybody? I know this is a little different. This is Saturday. I normally don't do interviews, podcasts, streams. I really try not to talk to y'all on screen on Saturdays necessarily. But this is gonna be dope. We carved out some time. It's been about a year in the making of trying to book this conversation with one of my good brothers. We've shared a space a couple of times. So this should be dope. Hopefully everybody is doing all right. It's raining out here in Baltimore and it's humid. So it's like crockpot weather with a pimp slap of steam. So it just doesn't really feel the greatest. It's 97 degrees with about 80% humidity. So if you don't have a hat, a bonnet, or you know what I'm saying, and you close to the B's and A's of like the 4C, mean like if you in that grade of hair, yeah, this ain't the best for you, dog. But anyway, I'm excited. This is gonna be dope. This is gonna be fruitful. This is gonna be insightful. But before we get into all of that, I'm gonna drop the intro real quick. They threw my ancestors in the ocean. Now we became the new wave, and we're about to drown this system. Every time I go in, every time I go in, every time I go in, boy, I'm jamming. Every time I go in, every time I go in, every time I go in, boy, I'm jamming. You know that I'm a kid, you know that I'm a kid, you know that I'm a kid, boy, I'm jamming. You know that I'm a kid, you know that I'm a kid, you know that I'm a kid, boy, I'm jamming. I'm always worried that I'm gonna be slouching. So if you ever see me I'm telling this online, and because I don't know if my guest can see me in his monitors, but I don't really know if he can see what he can. Cool. But when we have programs and stuff on screen, or we have intros and stuff, you never really know what they could see backstage. Like on my old streaming platform, I'm not gonna lie, your boy had a booger. You know what? They could only see what I allowed them to see. Your boy's going in his brain. I'm not really going. It's just gonna happen. I'm gonna use the bathroom if I need to use the bathroom. They would never know. If I gotta stretch, pick a wedgie out, that might be too graphic. I don't know if anybody else is about to eat lunch, but here we are today. Welcome to the Kid Casper podcast. I'm your gracious, beautiful, blessed, beloved, and black host, a kid that they call Casper. The KID in Kid Casper stands for that king of development. I'm that menace with the melanin. So reject me as I am, as long as he's still relevant, you know. I'm a graphic designer, clothing apparel owner. I'm a huge advocate for tacos. I feel like tacos are the Lord's food. Personally, I don't know literally how different type of food groups can come together and make a nice dish. I feel like we need to follow tacos, but you know, that could be up for debate because some people don't really feel like integration was the best thing for us. But anyway, that's besides the point. This is going to be I'm excited, to say the least. I don't know if you guys can tell, but I'm super excited. My guest this afternoon, it's about afternoon, I would say. It's afternoon in Texas. In Baltimore, it's about 2:11. So it's not too late, but it's usually the evenings when we're here. But my guest this afternoon, you know, this is a father, this is a husband, this is a fellow Christian content creator, YouTuber. I don't really know if I know he resides in Texas. I don't know if he is a Cowboys fan. If he is, we have to pray for, you know, the spirit of depression on him, unfortunately. Are you a Cowboys fan? Oh man, how does it feel to know that you guys haven't peaked since the 90s? That's upsetting. I don't know if I hope the Lord is still with you and your family. It has his hand on y'all over this time. But anyway, my guest this evening, y'all might know them or him. You know, normally when you see them on YouTube as That Christian Fam, Nikki and Jermaine. But I have the king of the household with us today. So if y'all could do me a favor, if y'all could just give a nice warm welcome to my brother down in Texas. You know what I'm saying? Brother Jermaine. How you doing today, sir?
I'm doing well, man. I cannot complain. I am a Cowboys fan, but my trust and hope is in Jesus. So, hey, listen, I will stick with my Cowboys fans to the day I die, but my hope ain't in them. So that's one thing to be happy about. I will say that.
Gotcha. I mean, I kind of feel what you're feeling because though I reside in Maryland, my folks are New York fans. So like, I have hope and prosperity in being a Yankees fan. I go through the severe depression being a Knicks and a Giants fan.
Oh,
Rangers are kind of like that girl you kind of crushing on that like kind of leaves you on red when you send them a text message. It's like hit or miss. Personally, but yeah, it's yes, thank God that my faith is not in a mediocre stance, a vanity stance like a sports team. So yes, amen to that for sure. Um,
yeah.
but yeah, man. So, first off, I'd like to, I said it to you privately, but I'd like to say, publicly, thank you for accepting my invitation to share the space with me, to, break bread and bake it with me. This, it still feels like morning time. I don't know about you. It still feels like morning time to me. Maybe because it's raining and it makes me a little sleepy, but I don't know. But I just wanted to say, thank you for just lending your voice and your presence on here, man. I think this is gonna be super, super dope to say the least.
Yeah, man. I pray that it's fruitful and somehow, some way, somebody gets something beneficial about what I say.
Yeah, absolutely. So, before we get started into the dialogue this afternoon, if you could give us and the internet, what I'm saying, and those that are going to be listening to this or watching this at a later time, an elevator's pitch to who Jermaine King is, what I'm saying, screen is yours.
Well, man, listen, I'll tell you first and foremost, I am a follower of the way. I am a follower of Jesus Christ. I love my wife and I love my children in that order. I am passionate about my faith. I'm passionate about anything that I put my hands to. I'm very passionate about. So we're talking about YouTube ministry. I'm very passionate about this YouTube ministry. We're talking about loving on people. I'm very passionate about loving on people. We're talking about listen, I love being a carpenter. I am a carpenter by trade. I love what I do. I do accounting by day, but my side hustle is a carpenter, being a carpenter, building furniture. I love doing that as well. And really, my it's hard to honestly mention a lot of things about me without mentioning Christ, because I really do look at life through a Christocentric lens. And so whatever I do, man, I'm always trying to do it unto the glory of the Lord. You know what I'm saying? So who I am a Southern dude who loves the Lord, loves his wife, and wants to be the best and best father he could possibly be while preaching the gospel to the people. So that's who I am. That's who I is. I'm unapologetically Christian and I'm unapologetically black. So I can't hear him. I can't hear you. I can't hear. I can't hear you, man. I couldn't hear anything you said after I finished speaking.
See that just happened again where I forgot to unmute myself. But I was saying like I made an effort, especially in my faith and in my blackness, to let people know I'm unapologetically black and unashamedly Christian. So those things for me are not mutually exclusive. So I appreciate that sentiment, to say the least. And thank you for letting me know. We also have a chat over here to let me know, like, hey, bro, you forgot to unmute yourself over here. But all goody, all goody. We good over here, dog. Um, so yeah, my next and super intense question on this here podcast, and I don't think I've asked you before on this channel, but my super intense question is if you had to pick a favorite Disney princess, you know what I'm saying? What Disney princess would that be today, good sir?
Are we talking about Disney Plus or just straight up Disney?
You can say Disney or Disney Plus. I don't really know what's on Disney Plus nowadays, so like you might know something I don't know.
I
Um,
don't. All I know is if is if Voltron ever gets adopted into Disney Plus, it would be Princess Allura. It will be Princess Allura from Voltron.
That's funny, boy.
Yeah,
That's some funny stuff.
yeah.
Um,
It would be her. That would be the one. Princess Allura from Voltron. Y'all can fight me if y'all want to.
I know that's right. Let's see, and let's see. This will let me know how much cooler you are than me, I guess. If you had to pick a starter 6 Pokemon set, you know what I'm saying? What starting 6 are we going with?
Now listen, bro. I told you. Now listen. I think because you asked me this stuff before, bro. I never got into Pokemon. I don't know anything about Pokemon. Nothing.
Not a
Nothing.
not a ting.
No, not nothing. I don't even know. Like I think it was like 5 or 6 some odd years ago where they was chasing ghosts and running off of mountains and people dying chasing ghosts and stuff. I didn't know what that was all about. Like you had people out in California walking off cliffs trying to catch a fake ghost, and I had no idea. So yeah. So I listen. You got to come with something else other than Pokemon references because I'm an '80s kid. You're a '90s baby. You're a '90s baby, and so '90s was. Pokemon was more around your generation. I don't fool with no Pokemon.
94, but like I feel like I was born in 84 some days, especially when it's raining like this. It's
No, you don't. Not with a Pokemon reference. You don't. I'm sorry. You gotta stay in the '90s, cuz stay in the '90s.
that's fine. I ain't mad about it. It's just that's just my way of communicating with the peoples, you know what I'm saying? But
And
yeah.
I reference Voltron. Do you know about Voltron?
I know so Voltron because I'm a 90s kid, I know about Voltron, but we had Power Rangers. You know what I'm
See,
saying?
that's what I'm talking about. That's what you can't relate. So when I say Princess Allura, you're like, oh, okay. But real G's from the '80s know what's up with Princess Allura and Voltron. They know about Voltron. Power Rangers is demonic, bro. We don't. If you're a real G, if you know Voltron, but if when you start talking about Power Rangers, that's when we cut you off, cause that's when we like, you know what, off with his head. Figure,
Off. I,
yeah,
that
figuratively,
that
so to
that
speak.
that is hilarious. So yeah, man. One of the reasons I think I've talked to you about this before. One of the reasons that I, came up with this, I would say like this lane in my ministry, as far as like, just being able to like break bread with people and just talk to them. I want to, at the end of the day, make an intentional effort of humanizing people, I would say. From I started this back in 2020, to interview different like artists and creatives I've, become acquainted to through the years, but then the pandemic happened. All right. And then, we had Ahmaud Arbery, Breonna Taylor, George Floyd. And for me, as a disciple of Christ, I felt like I had a Romans 12 obligation to like speak to what I saw happening, considering the fact that, we're not supposed to conform to the ways of this world, and yet the church was kind of silent on these things. And, in this lane, I've been able to create and steward an atmosphere to just be able to just have conversations with people, and just learn from them, and seek to understand, not to be understood, context being my favorite color, nuance being my niche, just allowing myself to just experience, like
Yeah.
just sharing a space with people and listening into other people's experiences. So my brother, if you could go as far back as you can remember to the 80s, you know what I'm saying, and tell me about a young Jermaine King, the screen is yours.
Well, let's see, a young Jermaine King. Well, first and foremost, man, if you know about the war on drugs, bro, uh, that crack era in the '80s was real, and like, while my parents and my mom and my daddy, of course, they never were on drugs or anything like that. Um, it was a let me back up a little bit. I will say this: '80s, Jermaine, there was a lot of fun in the '80s. Don't get it twisted. It was very fun to grow up in the '80s. However, the '80s is still the first time I ever saw a triple beam scale. I actually saw the war on drugs. I saw before the crack era hit, and then I saw after the crack era hit, and it was just like two different worlds. I saw that. Um, Yeah, I mean, and honestly, not being in the church, not growing up in the church or anything like that, it left you with a lot of questions and less answers, if you will. You know what I mean? So yeah, so that's what the '80s Jermaine was. The '80s Jermaine was, my parents wasn't saved, as I just mentioned, so we were watching movies we had no business watching at an early age. You know what I mean? um, Getting exposed to crazy stuff and trying to wrestle through those things in our minds. Like, okay, what does this mean? And you know what I mean? Like wild stuff, you know what I mean? And being girl crazy in the '80s, I'm still girl crazy, but now I'm singular girl crazy for my wife. Praise the Lord. So yeah. So anyways, so that's who I was as a kid, man. Fun loving kid, love sports, all the way through high school, played, football and all that other stuff. So yeah, so that's who I was as a kid. I don't want to be too long on that. So
Gotcha. If I remember correctly, just from like past conversations we've had together, I think you said you're originally from Oklahoma, if I'm not mistaken.
yeah, born and raised Oklahoma, yes sir. About 20 minutes from the Texas state line.
Okay. Can you talk to me a little bit about like what that was like for you? Because I grew up in Kansas, right? I'm from Wichita, Kansas, so we're like, you know what I'm saying? I'm on the top bunk. You're on the bottom bunk. Actually, I think I'm on the bottom bunk. You're on the top bunk, if I'm not mistaken. I know we're in the middle of the map, as far as Kansas goes. But
Yeah,
can you tell me a little bit about what life was like in Oklahoma growing up for you?
man, it was wild because I grew up in a military town because my dad was in the army. And so what that did is that kind of shielded us away from some of the more onset racism that we could have experienced um, in any other parts of Oklahoma. Now, don't get it twisted, we still experience some, but for the most part, it was a very diverse town where I don't know how to say it. You were treated, we were treated pretty well as far as I could tell from a child's standpoint. But my wife, I'm sorry, not my wife, my mama, she put us on game as to some things that may have been going on that we didn't understand at the time. But you know, they were still going on, but we just couldn't comprehend it being children. But it was really cool, man. I will say we grew up being different from everybody. Like we were those cool kids on the block. Two-parent household, praise God, and that was, and yeah, and that's a whole nother conversation all by itself. And we love playing sports. We love going doing something called herping, which is where you go catch amphibians and
Hold on.
reptiles.
Say that one more again. You said herping.
Yeah,
Say that one more again.
herping. So HERPING, herping. And so we would go catch snakes and stuff. And so to this day, we still love snakes. My kids love snakes. We have a pet snake in our household. All that stuff. Just grew up really country. Yeah, but but yeah, so that's how it was. That was our childhood. I think it was the best childhood that you could have. Growing in the South, in the middle, middle of the country, still in the South though. And it was cool because we had great weather. It was typically warmer than it was cold. You know what I mean? And it was really dope, man. I wouldn't trade my childhood for the world. I would not. I would not. Now we did experience some racism. We had something called campfire when I was a kid, and there was certain reasons why my parents would not let me go to campfire. Campfire was something that you would go out on the weekend with some folk who they didn't look like you, put it that way, and they would take you camping over the weekend. And I told my mama, I'll just be real brief because I talked about this on my channel or our channel before. Like, Mama, I want to go to campfire. She's like, boy, you're not going to campfire. Lo and behold, I had a friend, who didn't look like me, who was white. And I was like, man, listen, I want to come over your house and play. And he wanted me to come over his house and play with his toys, play with them and stuff. And so cool. But then, like the next day, he came back to school, said, uh, you can't come over my house. And I'm like, why? And he said, well, my dad says I can't play with, NIGGR, I mean, ERs. And so yeah, and so from that point on, the light bulb went in my head like, oh mama, this is what my mama said I couldn't go to campfire for. Gotcha, gotcha. Didn't want me out in the woods. Yeah. So anyway, so yeah, so that's what it was like growing up in Oklahoma, man.
Gotcha, gotcha. So for me, similar experience. Growing up in Kansas, I never necessarily experienced racism, but I could understand where I say like this, like I never experienced overt racism, but I've like had to come to grips and recognize like, oh, there's still it's racism is just covert. You know what I'm saying? So like I may not have like the experience of like, oh, somebody calling me the hard to my face, but I've definitely like had to pick
That's
like
good.
as I've gotten older, recognize like, oh, those were microaggressions. That's right. We have those in society. So I didn't really experience it to a heavy level until I moved to the East Coast, which is funny. Our ancestors jumped to the upper East Coast and experienced sometimes more brutality out here than they did in the South. I think Martin spoke to that clearly as well. But yeah, it just it was a very interesting life to growing up in Kansas, to say the least, simply because it was like there was that sense of respect to some degree, meaning like we could do life and coexist with one another in this town. However, much like with you, I don't really remember getting that invitation to come over to some of my white counterparts' parties and stuff like that in school. And then I had to grow up to recognize like, oh, that's why.
Yeah.
That's why. So you were in Oklahoma from, I'm guessing, childhood to like what about age?
To the age of 19, off and on between there and Germany. Spent 4 years in Germany, but every other year was spent in Oklahoma.
Interesting. Military affiliation by chance?
Oh, not for me, but my daddy, like I was saying, he was in the army.
Oh, okay.
And yeah, he was in the army. I wasn't in the army, of course, but he was in the army, so that's how we ended up in this military town. They're from St. Louis, Missouri. So so that's how we got to Oklahoma, so to speak. And now all our relatives, they live in Oklahoma too. A lot of them. So
Gotcha, gotcha.
yeah, man.
That's interesting. That's real interesting. So, I'm curious for you, and I think other people. I'm not sure if you talked about this publicly. Talk to me a little bit about how you came to stepping into your faith. What was that like, as far as because I know you said you grew up in a Christian household, but one thing that's beautiful about this walk is like you can't get into heaven with secondhand smoke. You know what I'm saying? Like you have to engage Jesus and have a relationship with Jesus on your own. Can you talk to me about when your faith became your own, opposed to what your parents, I guess, like stewarded in the household for you? Like, what was that like for you to dedicate your life to Christ, and what did your faith look like to you growing up?
Well, man, I mean, honestly, I didn't grow up in a Christian household. I grew up in a two-parent household, but it wasn't Christian.
Oh, I'm sorry. I
Um,
thought you. My bad. I thought you said that your folks were saved. My apologies. I retract my statement. But
no, no,
sure.
no, no, they weren't like until I was like maybe 14 or so. Um, then that's when they started like going to church, and that's when maybe they eventually converted over to being Christian or whatever. But growing up, like I said, we watched everything under the sun, even inappropriate things, unfortunately. And so like my parents, they were movie buffs, and like they you in a lot of black households, you know how it is. Like basically, the parents, my grandparents, maybe went to church, and so my parents actually gleaned a little bit from them. But they, when they got on their own, they wild out. They didn't, you know what I mean. So they knew of church, but as far as being saved and making sure that we read the Bible and prayed and knew Jesus, it was none of that. But they still had some morals because and some standards too, because my daddy was in the military. And so, but how I actually came into my faith is very interesting, man. I was actually baptized at the age of 13, but I didn't really know what it was like to actually walk with Jesus until I was well into my teens, like maybe 17 or so. And I'll say that to say this: my wife Nikki was very instrumental in that because, man, listen, this is a long story. Long story short, I was in the church, but church wasn't in me. I'll say that. Now, my wife was born, basically, almost born and raised in the church. So,
Can I just say I appreciate that transparency in that answer. You said I was in the church, but the church wasn't in me. I understand that thoroughly.
yeah, man. Yeah, yeah. Show enough, bruh. Show enough. And that's how it was. And so she had been going to church. She was two. And like, and you know, because I don't want to, and I really want to give her credit and the grace of God credit because, you know, there'll be people who grew up in the church, but that don't mean that they really walking with them. But for whatever reason, I praise God that my wife was actually serious about her faith at a very young age. And now that actually went to play to my detriment, low key, when we first met, because I was still in the world. And so like, and my wife is not advanced, you know, and she's not experimenting around with anything. She's not sexually active and all that other stuff. That wasn't your boy's testimony, all right? That wasn't your boy's testimony. So when I stepped to her, I met her at a National Baptist convention. Um, I approached her like she was someone in the world because I was in the world. All right. And so, long story short, she basically told me, you know, a year later, that she was not interested in me because I didn't know Jesus or whatever. And so, like, long story short, man, that really hit me hard, and it really made me made me question: was I really walking with Jesus, or was I just somebody who just simply went to church? And we're like kids still. I'm like 17 at this point. And then so, you know, one thing led to another. Me and my wife would just right back and forth, this, that, and the other. But um it started off with maybe me you know, trying to develop my relationship with God to the point to where I was trying to develop my relationship, but it wasn't to please my wife at my, you know, someone that I just knew at the time because we weren't even, you know, dating the girlfriend, boyfriend, anything like that. But she sparked something in me to where I started wanting and desiring to have a relationship with God at that point. And I started, you know, praying and reading my word and just doing devotionals and spending time talking to him and things like that. And that's how I really stepped into my faith. And my wife propelled me into that. And so I will say that to say this, man. My wife is very intricate. She played a very heavy part in you know, me being saved today, and that just shows you the difference between being raised in the North and raised in the South. My wife is from Ohio, and up there in the North, man, it's different from in the South. Here in the Bible Belt, to where it's just a foregone conclusion that you know Jesus, but up there it doesn't play to your benefit to know Jesus. It's actually the opposite, to be honest with you. Down here, if you say you don't know Jesus or you don't go to church, like you got two heads between church and state. Don't say the name of Jesus in school, so it doesn't play to your benefit to be a Christian up there. And so, when I said it to say this, up there, you more so have to be a Christian on purpose rather than default. As opposed to down here in the South, it's Christian by default, and everybody thinks you're all good, and that's how people skate by, and people don't even know Jesus, but they think you know Jesus just because you know how to open a door for a woman. So yeah. So, anyways, that's how I got into my faith. Is
Gotcha. I can understand that to some degree, especially, and I mean, you can kind of look at that as far as like growing up in certain areas, but then having to kind of be set apart by the fruit that you bear. Like for me, I grew up like I would say like so I have like a similar to like different experience to you growing up. I was around church people and I was around people that went to church. However, like I feel like to some degree like because I had like a I guess like my spirit knew when there was like a religious spirit around me very early. I was like, this ain't it. I don't know what y'all trying to show me on Sundays, but this ain't it. You know what I'm saying? And I think like my body knew very early, like this is not what Christ is supposed to be like. And so once I started actually stepping into my faith, it was like, oh, this is what that set apart thing is talking about. Because then when I start to engage, like even like my family members and like other people that I went to school with that proclaim to be Christians, it was like, oh, so not so much that I'm closer to the real thing, but I'm actually Christian by I'm actually doing this Christian thing the right way because I'm choosing to live it opposed to act it, if that makes sense.
Yeah, yeah, it makes sense, total sense. So it's just really, I just really appreciate my wife. First of all, I love the fact that she's my wife. Praise God. Secondly, but well, most importantly, I appreciate the fact that she cared enough about me to even point me to Jesus. And if I wasn't going to be with Jesus, she wasn't rocking with me. So now we'll be celebrating 18 years of marriage in the month of August, which is next month. And we have 3 children together, and that's all by the grace of God. But it would not have been had your boy not pivoted and Christ did a 180 in his life, because she wouldn't have had nothing to do with me. She would have been straight up like, I don't want you, I don't want you, I don't want you, I don't want you, I don't want you. Exactly. So yeah.
That's hilarious. Hey yo. But yeah, man, that's beautiful to say the least. And also, I think like people don't recognize like the challenge that comes with that. What is that like, especially now you're raising your kids in Texas? What is it like, say, raising black children in Texas while trying to steward and nurture their faith and their blackness simultaneously?
Wow, man. Like that's a loaded question. um, I will say this, man. Here in the Metroplex, Dallas Fort Worth, man, we got about 8 million people here. And so just in this Metroplex, about 8 million people. And there's 400 people that move to this area every day. 400 people. So that's a lot of people. All right. So there's a lot of people primarily from the South. And then there's people from all that's moved from all over New York, DC, Baltimore, Detroit, shout out to the other D town up north where don't nobody want to move to. People are moving here from Chicago, especially California, all over. And so like we're very insulated here in Dallas. All right. Um, and so to raise our children here on, especially on the side of the Metroplex we're in, which is predominantly African American and brown communities, it's pretty cool. It's not really, you don't really feel that challenge, so to speak. But I do know people who live outside of the Metroplex or live in areas within the Metroplex that are not as diverse, if you will. And they talk about the challenges they experience. And, the assumption that if something goes wrong, you got to point to the Gentile darky, so to speak. Like he's the one that did it. But even I don't want to get too comfortable. Me and my wife will never get too comfortable with being in this space of the Metroplex, because we still need to make sure that we raise our children to conduct themselves in a way to where they don't give anybody a reason to stop them for anything or to suspect them of anything, and when they get to driving, to pull them over for anything. Like we teach our children not to wear hoods in the grocery store, not to have your hands in your pocket in the grocery store, because we're just not going to be afforded that luxury or that benefit of the doubt to say, you know what, the young man just wants to have his hands in his pocket. Now, get your hands out your pocket. These are some of the liberties that you are not going to be afforded, which is okay. I'm fine. It is what it is at this point, but it won't be because the daddy and the mama didn't teach them. That's what you ain't going to be able to say. Well, Jermaine and Nicole, they didn't raise their kids to da 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 da. No, my kids are going to be equipped to conduct themselves in any setting, and to just not be sitting up there like boo boo the fool, like you don't know what the temperature of the room is when you step up in that mud. You get
Right.
what I'm saying?
Yeah,
So
it's
yeah.
I don't know if you ever seen the show All American on CW, and the main character, one of the main characters' name, he goes by Coach Billy Baker. He has a son by this white woman, his wife, and he has very, even though he's black, he has a lot of Eurocentric features. Hair is a little bit more looser and everything like that. So he got pulled over somewhere in, like, I think they were in Beverly Hills, I believe. His teammate Spencer is from Crenshaw, so we talk about like we talking like Crenshaw and Beverly Hills. The dichotomy between the two is ridiculous, and like there's this one scene where like Yo gets pulled over, and he's just like he gets out the car, goes to the police officer, he's like, "Hey, officer, like what's the problem? Like, is everything okay? Like, do you know who my dad is?" And like this man is 6'4", and like for me, even though I was watching this, I got super anxious. I was like, what are you doing? And sure enough, when his teammate when his teammate like pulled up his coach, he's like, why? He said, "Yo, why didn't you tell Jordan?" He said, "Why didn't you tell Jordan how to conduct himself near the cops?" Like, I got that talk when I was like 5 years old, and his dad said, "I didn't think we would have to have that conversation because I thought because of how he grew up, that wouldn't have been an issue." So I definitely get what you mean as far as like being irresponsible in what you leave your kids with, because that could be really, really bad, especially when they look like us.
Yeah, man, for sure. And honest with you, to be honest with you, that's a little bit of the disappointment that I have in today's society. Is that we haven't progressed as much. Now we made some progression. I'm gonna keep it real, but we haven't progressed in especially in certain sectors or certain corners of the country as much as I would like to see that we have progressed. Like for instance, I saw or experienced some type of racism as a kid, but I would always be, down here in the South, especially in Texas and Oklahoma, in Louisiana too. We have something called sundown towns. I don't know if you ever heard of that. Sundown towns, and basically, those are the towns you don't want to get caught outside after dark in those towns. So, we have sundown downtowns, and so, we were always taught as kids, don't let the street lights catch you. And it wasn't that our parents didn't trust us when the street lights came on. It was don't be outside after dark. Um, you know what I mean? And so because it's automatically going to be assumed that you're doing something wrong, so to speak, or danger lurks or whatever. So they would be like, no, you ain't playing outside at the dark or whatever. And so, and I was like, dog, man, like, and so I would always hope for the day, like, man, my kids ain't gonna have to worry about this. That's what we thought as kids. But fast forward, hey, it it's just the same or worse. I would say it's the same. It's just more is caught on camera now. So, I don't want to get into, all the racism stuff too much or whatever, but that is one of the disappointments I have is that I still have to teach my kids. And, a lot of the black families and brown families, so to speak, have to talk about, have to have that talk with their children, what to do if you pulled over by the police. My kids are not old enough to drive. Like for instance, I got I was on a freeway. I was going a little bit over the speed, just a little bit. Cop didn't give me no ticket or nothing like that. But they already know the drill. We got to make sure that we keep our hands visible. Our children put their hands on the back of the seat of the driver's seat and the passenger seat. We put our hands on the dash. We roll down all the windows. I don't care if it's 110 degrees or it is 20 degrees. We roll down all the windows and all the other stuff. Don't make it, because we don't want any assumption that anything malice is going on. We'll already have we don't need license and registration in the state of Texas. And if anybody ever pulls you over and says license and registration for in the state of Texas, they're not a real police officer. But anyways, they have been taught already, and my kids are our youngest is 6. We got an 8-year-old daughter and an 11-year-old son, and so but they've known that drill for the last 4 years. So yeah, so it's a little disappointing, like I said, and we have good. We have good, well-to-do people too that are, Caucasian. I got my brother in the chat, Ryan Adams. He's in the chat. A good brother in the faith. So and it's bad because you don't want to paint a whole sector of people with a broad brush. You know what I'm saying? But you always have to be leery of those, who don't like you, as opposed to the ones. And I wish we could have more brothers like Ryan. You know what I'm saying? So yeah. So anyway, so
I feel that. Can you? So we talked about this one time on my channel, and I feel like it's one of the biggest lies as far as that we've experienced as a people when we're talking about our faith. That Christ does not look like us. Can you speak to about? Can you speak to like how important that is when we're talking about the dignity of being? I would just say like just being like people that come from us and our ilk, to know that like God look like, you know what I'm saying, like God's son looks like you, and where Christianity is not a white man's disease.
well, with that, and I want to shout out to brother Dre from Harrison Family Values channel. He talks about the depiction of Christ being an idol. Um, and it's sad that a lot of the depictions that we have seen have been, Europeanized, um, to where it has to be a marketed Christ as opposed to what Christ really looked like. I will say this: don't matter. Now, listen, for a lot of people, it doesn't matter what Christ looked like, but there's a heavy population that it does matter what Christ looked like. It does matter. It plays a huge factor in their belief or whatever. I understand wholeheartedly that we just need to worry about his blood being red. And can his blood still save? Yes, we do. But we need to keep it a buck and understand the fact that I know that Jesus, when he was born, he was taken to Egypt and so forth to hide away to the skies. All right. And, people will make much of what the people in Egypt look like. The people in Egypt back in those days actually were a little bit darker, a lot darker than what they are now. But even with that being said, the whole point is he didn't look like whatever the depictions that we're seeing in these steeples and these chapels and these stained glass windows. He didn't look like that. However, we know that history has to be rewritten, and it has to be marketable to mainstream culture. And if he's not marketable to mainstream culture, then he won't be accepted. If he's not accepted, money doesn't come in. If money doesn't come in, church is closed down. And so that's just like in a nutshell. That how I want to explain that. We need to understand that the Bible was written not, hey, almost like how one pastor put it years ago. He was like, listen, the Bible, when it concerning African Americans, you don't need to look at the Bible like, oh, we're included too. No, uh, a lot of that is you. The people that they're talking about, especially in the New Testament, I mean, in the Old Testament, and even in the New Testament, those are people of color. All right, and so we need to understand that, and we need to be able to identify with that and understand, hey, listen, this isn't a European religion. It's a North African, Middle Eastern religion or whatever. But but, but I guess I don't want to get too caught up in this, but I want y'all to understand this. And I don't know if I said this on your channel or not, but there's a reason why when there's a vast majority of Africans who knew about Christ before they ever stepped foot on the slave ship. All right. It wasn't like we just started hearing about Christ when we arrived on the coast of South Carolina and Georgia and Delaware and New Jersey and stuff like that. That's not where we learned about Christ. We know about Christ before then. Matter of fact, there was great missionaries on the continent of Africa. But the problem that we had is that a lot of us were taken from Western Africa, and a lot of the gospel, much of the gospel had not reached Western Africa as much. However, a lot of it was concentrated in Eastern and Northeastern and Northern Africa. Some of it did get to Western Africa or whatever, but there was still enough of it to where a lot of us knew about Christ beforehand, to the point to where we knew that the gospel that was being presented to us stateside here in America was not the real gospel. Was not the real gospel. And since we knew that, I want to go into the difference between dignified and undignified church. It will be on some. This is why Sunday services, night services in the African American church are so big, or were so big at one point in time, because night services was when we could have the undignified church, the uncontrolled church. So like during the day, we would have the temperate church, the controlled church, and the sermons that were being preached were the sermons that were allowed to be preached to us and things like that. And we were very dignified and under control. But what happened is the slaves that knew better, they would steal away on Sunday evening, and they would wet sheets, they would wet blankets. Y'all can look this up. They would wet blankets, all right, and they would take those wet blankets and they would string them on trees or whatever to kind of make like a box, so to speak. All right. So they could go worship Jesus the way that they wanted to, with dancing, screaming, shouting, running, and the full gospel was preached. The whole gospel was preached. All right. And they would do that. The reason why they wet the sheets, for y'all that if it's not registering with you or you don't understand, they would wet the sheets so the sound would not go out. So they would create a sound barrier. All right. So they knew about the real Jesus. They knew about the real Bible before they even stepped foot on American soil. So that just goes to show you, it's not a white man's religion. It's a people religion. It means for all people. All people.
Absolutely. And also, I think the one thing to also recognize that, like, because it may have came from a certain area and it may predominant in this country, that we don't necessarily have a right to like legislate morality, but give it as an invitation or offering to people. I always found that to be more beautiful than people on like side of the road, or like bro, I'm in check, I know Jesus, I'm in checkout at like Food Line, I'm not really trying to have you bother me unless you try to pay for my groceries right then and now personally. But I've always appreciated when people allow the Holy Spirit to help them navigate through these spaces, and they are, yes, you can be brash and bold in your faith and unapologetic, or you could also minister to people as gentle as a dove, you know what I'm saying, and just gently, and I say
Yeah,
gently,
yeah, yeah.
just brush by them, just be like, hi, I operate off of the frequency of Yahshua the King, you know what I'm saying? And I just wanted to tell you about him real quick. And if people, vehemently reject it or categorically, emphatically reject it, then that's fine. But don't try to put the clothes on them, you know what I'm saying? And let them know that the clothes are for them if they wanted to put them on. I've always found that and admired that with some of the people I've been able to do life with, that yes, that they found their identity in Christ, but they don't allow their identity in Christ to become something that is indeed religious, more relational, and personable, if that makes sense.
Yeah, yeah, man. Yeah, that makes total sense, man. So I get it. I think that we definitely, there's a fine line, because you definitely, to be you need to be loving. You need to season your words with love and grace when you're communicating. So that's what I think is really dope and Jermaine about our Christianity, our following of Jesus, if you will. So yeah.
For sure, for sure. One thing I'm curious about, for yourself, because I spoke about this and I recognize I haven't really asked too many people this, especially those that identify as disciples of Christ. What I talked to them about, like, for instance, like I asked you about like your testimony, but I don't think unless it's in your catalog somewhere in your content that you spoke on this, and I am curious because I think to some degree we're all still kind of feeling this shock in our system when we're talking about the American church. More specifically, when we talk about the pandemic, about February of 2020 comes, and everything we know to what it's like to being a disciple of Christ, church, being able to share spaces with people, to have fellowship with one another, drastically changes when we're all home downloading Zoom. Um,
Mm.
and having to now navigate as a disciple, being in community with people but not being able to be around them, and have a more intimate approach. Can you talk to me if there was a shift or a struggle or have you with your faith with the pandemic kicking off, what that was like for you, how did you make it through it, and I guess like just speak to like that experience of not having, I guess like not just having church and trying to find church within like your own home, if that makes sense.
Yeah, man. So listen, we stayed away from like gathering in the church building for, well, because they didn't have it for a long time. They didn't have it open to the public. But we stayed away for what is it, a little bit more than a year. And during that time, we had to. This is why it's so important to actually know Jesus and actually disciple your children for yourself, because I think a lot of people make this assumption that that the church is supposed to foster a relationship with Jesus, and the church is supposed to teach your children about Jesus, and the church is supposed to teach you about Jesus, and that's true to some extent. However, the church is not responsible for teaching your children about the ways of Christ. They will partner with you. They will partner with you and come alongside of you to kind of reaffirm or some of those things that you try to teach them. But that's not their responsibility. They're just to partner with you, basically amen everything that you are trying to instill in your child. And I say that to say this.
It's that cruelty like charity begins at home. If it's not fostered and cultivated at home, it don't matter who come alongside trying to steward that. If it ain't started at home, it don't matter. It don't matter who come along with. It ain't gonna be as natural. You're basically saying.
Yeah, yeah, exactly, man. And so, like, listen, we could have just fell off the map. We could have just been like, you know what, man, we can't go to church. Oh man, I don't know about this Jesus thing, right? But no, because we know who redeemed us. We know who called us out of darkness into the marvelous light. We know the one who called us to do a 180. We're headed one direction and one trajectory. Now we did a 180. We then pivoted and gone in another direction. That's who called us out of darkness into the marvelous light. And so, like, we know him, and we know he's not confined to a building. And we understood full well years ago, decades ago, that the church is not a building. The church is simply an edifice. We are the church. And so we were adamant. We were like, listen, we gonna all get up on Sunday morning. We all gonna watch this church. We're all gonna clap our hands. We're gonna sing along with the songs. We're gonna participate in worship, even though we're not there. And so that was very interesting. Because no matter what you try to do at home, it's still not the same. It's still not the same. However, what it did do is it taught us to appreciate what we had. And so then when everything came back to normal or whatever, so to speak, as normal as whatever it is, or to a certain extent, we really appreciate being able to gather with other believers. And so yeah, man. So like, I can't say that, oh, well, COVID itself is a blessing, but I can say that I believe in Romans 8:28, which says that all things are excuse me, all things work together for the good of them who love God and to those who are the called according to His purpose. And He kind of used that to kind of prune a lot of stuff out. And listen, we honestly took our Christianity, our relationship with Jesus serious before, but like it even now, even more so now, we take it even more seriously, because we're like, you know what, time is filled with swift transition. People are passing away left and right. We don't know what tomorrow holds. and it honestly helped to kind of prune the church or whatever a little bit to like the people who are really seeking Jesus. Those are the ones who are there. Those are the ones who are still coming. Those are the ones when it's not as flashy, when it's not as lit as it maybe was before the pandemic. You know what I mean? And so, like, this is where you really see who really about that action. Who's really about that action when the dust settles, when the stuff hits the fan. Who is still holding on to that bloodstained banner, man? And so, we can look back on these COVID years. Me and my wife will always say, these are going to be considered the COVID years, and we'll be able to look back on these years and praise God that we'll be on the right side of history as opposed to the wrong, if you will.
One thing that you spoke on my channel, the importance that we need to recognize and something that we need to do. I think it's like a lost trade within like the American church, and I would just say like as disciples as well, is lamenting like how important during this time being able to properly lament during this time. First off, for those that are at home and don't know what lamenting is, can you break that down for what lamenting means and what you meant about that when you talk about how we need to properly lament and how necessary it is while dealing through this time period?
Yeah, man. Well, lamenting means to basically take a period of time to actually feel the weight of the time, or actually feel the sorrow or the I don't know 'cause I don't have the definition right in front of me, but to take time to pause and feel the feel the emotions that you need to feel in these dark times, or in these times where it may be painful, where people are losing loved ones. We need to pause and basically, use it in that sense, lament on that. That means meditate on it. Think about how weighty that might be. The Bible says that we are supposed to mourn with those that mourn. um have you taken time to mourn with those who have lost loved ones in this time period of this pandemic? Have you taken time to actually ponder enough and to elaborate enough mentally to where you can just take time to say, you know what, this is really tough, and I really need to take in the full weight of what is going on. We heard the numbers. We heard the numbers like, oh, well, such and such people, this and many people died today. And instead of just skipping off and like, oh, okay, wow, that's really too bad. Okay, on to the next. No, no, actually pause and think about this. We live 4.5 hours away from Uvalde, Texas. Which is right outside of San Antonio. We're in Dallas, and so where you have what, 19 babies that were killed, 22 or 21 people killed totally, right? Or 21 to 22 people. I think it was 19 babies that were killed, gunned down. And you could hear that and be like, oh, wow, those babies lost their life. No, listen, fam, those babies lost their lives. And we should pause and honestly feel a godly sorrow about that. Like, man, this is really too bad. Like, something has to be done. This needs to fester in my spirit long enough to where I actually feel the weight of that, and it may provoke me to have enough compassion to do something differently from this point on. So, yeah.
And one thing I think is important about that too, it sounds like what you're saying to some degree. Let me know if I'm off base or on base, but just being in touch to like, just not being out of touch of like what's happening, and then like how like what is happening impacts a lot of people. Because as you said, um, as I suffer, my father suffers. You know what I'm saying? He feels the struggle, and he feels this divine sadness, I would just say, when I'm feeling what I'm feeling. And I think of like even during this time, like The homeless population is like it's sounds weird that we have a homeless population. We have more homes in this country than we have homeless people, but that's besides the point. And you see like many examples of the least of these, those that are hurting, those that are homeless, those that are downtrodden, pardon my language, bastardized to some extent, and how we kind of miss Jesus with their sadness, because with by acknowledging the least of these and their circumstances, and looking at them and looking at how they are, to some extent less than in society's eyes. When we don't acknowledge them, we don't acknowledge Christ. So I think that it is properly, I think it is important, appropriately, because I feel like to some degree, if you lament too long, I have something that I've recently had to recognize. Feeling the weight of everything too long, but not allowing yourself to move is dangerous. But
Mhm.
recognizing the Imago Dei before you and how the Imago Dei is impacted, I feel like as a disciple of Christ, it's necessary for you to almost be connected to your faith to some degree.
Oh yeah, yeah, man. I mean, you definitely can't. I wouldn't say lament yourself into a depression. But you definitely need to pause and think about it, and then okay, from that point on, how is this going to impact the way I maneuver through the streets? How is this going to impact the way I govern myself as a Christian, as a Christian man in this world? So yeah, so I think that there has to be there's a time and a season to everything, and so I just think that we are not given the proper limitation, if you will, to the things that we need to. In a society or a culture that's always worried about self and gimme, gimme, gimme. So yeah.
So recently on, I think it was on Instagram, you had posted something that said, here's the thing: black men don't cry, not because they don't want to, but because they're not given the space to be vulnerable with a good population of their woman. I know you spoke heavily on this particular subject, talking about, the, we'll call it Slapgate, with the Will Smith and Chris Rock scenario. Um, but I want you to kind of like dive in on what the importance of, and just saying like men in general, but if you could speak to your own experience, um, even to the importance of having a space to feel your emotions as a man in this society, um, and how beneficial that could be when given that, but how detrimental that could be when it's withheld from you.
Yeah, man. Yeah, thank you for referencing that, bro. I'm gonna tell you this. It is very detrimental to any man to be able to be given that space. And when you don't give men that space, bad things can happen. Within the African American population, I will say this: by and large, we're not given that space. A lot of people want to be PC and say on social media and say things on certain platforms, hey, how they would view a man that's crying or whatever, how a man, how they view a man that actually has to cry. But behind closed doors or something like that, those same people, and I forgot some of the videos that I saw, those same people, they really wouldn't, that's not what they desire. And I've seen it, firsthand from some people say, they don't want men that, they don't want no punk. And it's like, if showing an emotion makes you a punk, then I guess we all punks, because it's a God-given emotion that we're all given, and it manifests itself through our tear ducts. All
Say that.
right, we need to be able to cry. We need to be able to cry about certain things, because if we don't release certain things, pressure bursts pipes, and when pipes burst, bad things happen. We have to be able to have a safe landing space to unpack or land some of these things that we're dealing with. It's hard, when you have to fight like hell to make a living in society, and then you're not given the space to actually unpack that and actually say, you know what, dang man, this is just hard, this is tough, this is heavy, this is weighty, this is what I'm dealing with. You know, even when it comes to just talking about your feelings and stuff like that, some women may frown on that, but they really don't want you to cry. And it's funny because we're especially within the black culture, with a lot of our women, we're we're made out to be Frankensteins, monsters. Because on one hand, like I said in the post, you want us to be empathetic, you want us to be gentle, you want us to be loving and understanding and sentimental and all of those things on one hand, but yet when we have to cry just because of some of the weight that we're under, or some of the losses we may have experienced, or some of the pressure that we're under, it's like, well, I don't want no punk. I can't have no punks. And it's like, yo, I'm not a punk. I just happen to be dealing with something that is very heavy. And if I don't let this out, I might control alt delete myself off the face of this planet. I might go run and do something reckless with somebody I ain't got no business doing. Yeah, you know what I'm saying? I don't, I might go hurt myself. I might go hurt somebody else. I might just snap and spaz out because I have no release and I'm not given an area or a space with my woman to actually release and let those feelings out. Now, if you look at other populations and other demographics, they're given that space. They're given that understanding by their women. But my challenge to, black women in particular, is to make sure that you give that space, that same understanding that you give everybody else. Make sure you give that to your black brother because he needs it too. All these other cultures get it. Asians, Latinos, Hispanics, white, all of them get that space. And how are they doing? How are they doing? Just food for thought. But it is very important that we're given that space. We have to be given that space.
Also, I think like to some degree, when we're talking about just giving the space to, I mean, like it's a humanistic, like I would say like a, when you say it's a privilege, it's a birthright to just be able to occupy in a space to, like in a very healthy manner, just navigate through that. I think that's super super important. Um, so I feel that for sure. You went black. Are you good over there, dog? Or you went black on my screen.
Yeah, I'm good. I'm just making sure that I change out my battery so I don't die on you.
Oh, okay, okay. Oh man, you supposed to put the you supposed to get the dummy battery in your camera so we don't got no issues. That's funny.
Oh, really?
That's some funny stuff. But yeah, man. So the people, while you getting yourself situated, the people can still hear you. So that's all that matters. Even the audio folks, when they get this later, they won't have to necessarily be without. So all goody on that front. Um, and up, he actually dropped out for a second. 1 second, guys. I'm waiting to get brother Jermaine back. He looks like, oh, there he is. He just came back, y'all. You good over there, dog? I know you getting yourself situated. Yes, no. They're we in the green room. This is interesting. This is very well. If you can hear me, I hope you can hear me. While you're getting yourself situated, I think I'm gonna drop the intro again real quick while you get. They threw my ancestors in the ocean. Now we became the new wave, and we're about to drown this system. Every time I go in, every time I go in, every time I go in, boy, I'm jamming. Every time I go in, every time I go in, every time I go in, boy, I'm jamming. I'm a kid, I'm a kid, I'm a kid, boy, I'm jamming. I'm a kid, I'm a kid, I'm a kid, boy, I'm jamming. So I'm not sure what exactly is going on over. I think he's trying to fix his he said he's changing out his battery. So while we get warm the space and keep his chair warm. How's everybody doing this evening? Well, not evening, afternoon, my bad. I'm so used to it being nighttime when I'm on this space. So how's everybody doing today? Let me know where you are watching this from. Hopefully you're enjoying the conversation. Let me know. Let your boy know how we doing. Does the sound good? Do we sound clear? Is my pixelations pixelated and calibrated? You know what I'm saying? Um, while y'all getting that situated, I'm gonna not feel awkward and eat my food while y'all while I wait for my brother to come on back here um, and wrap this up with him. You know what I'm saying? Hmm. Up there he is. This is funny. Are we good over there? I think you muted, dog. There you go.
Okay, yeah, man. Sorry about that.
All good. Look, man, I was just telling you before we got started. Ain't nothing like having to readjust midstream. We all good over there. As far as
Right,
that
right.
goes, I was sitting over here asking the people how they doing. I'm like, let me eat my lunch a little bit while they let me know how they doing. So it all worked out. I was over here like, I really am hungry, but I gotta uphold my part in the conversation, and my stomach is talking to the microphone, so it kind of
Yeah,
worked out a little bit.
yeah, man. I got you. But yeah, man, I'm sorry about that.
All goody,
I,
man. Look, man. It happens. This is a family show, and like sometimes, like I think I've had it not with me before, but like I've had to jump up and like bounce my niece on my leg before, so there ain't nothing to have to readjust midstream. This ain't nothing for sure, for sure.
I got you, man. I got you.
Uh huh.
Yeah, man.
So one thing that I am curious about, because I think you said that you do carpentry, accounting. What made you want to like, I guess like as far as this layer of your ministry, what made you want to like get into like the YouTube space, the content creating space? What made you want to step into that lane in your ministry, if you don't mind me asking?
Yeah, man. Well, listen, that was a call by the Lord about 8 years, nine. Ooh, I keep saying 8 years, but I'm just saying 8 years for like 2 years now. So I want to say, man, about 10 years ago, the Lord actually put it on my heart that me and my wife, Nikki, we would be doing YouTube ministry. This is before everybody got like really on YouTube, like as far as like with Christian content and all that stuff. Now, I know that there were some out there at the time, but not like it is now. It's not like it is now. But however, he didn't give me that green light to start it until we got down here in Dallas, Texas. He told me that when we were still living in Ohio. And so, he was telling me the things that he wanted me to do or wanted me to get, me to do with that ministry, but he hadn't given me the green light to do it. And so it was in 2018 that he gave me that green light to do it. And so that's when we started it, man. And so really, um, because honestly, being an associate minister, it wasn't, you get a chance to preach, but you don't preach as much as you maybe. It's not like you don't preach enough, so to speak. But I just know that I had more in me that I needed to get out. All right, and I needed another outlet. For me and my wife to actually get some of these things out that we actually want to communicate to people, because that's the heart behind the reason why we decided to create this YouTube channel anyway, because we wanted to show Christians, particularly more young Christians, that it is still possible to live for Jesus in 2020. Well, at that time, 2018, or 2018, and just in today's time in general, how do we, we have topics and we have things that pop off in society all the time, but how do we navigate our minds around that and maneuver that as Christians, you know what I mean? And so, like for instance, I'll talk about some hot topics. Matter of fact, tomorrow I'll be talking about Senator Tierra Mack from Rhode Island. I'll be talking about that tomorrow with me and my wife. We'll be talking about it at 7:15 Central Standard Time. We'll be talking about that. What do we say to this? Being a Christian, you know what I mean? And so we'll talk about all the crazy stuff. With the baby mama and the McDonald's, we'll talk about that. We'll also talk about why we need Jesus. And it's funny because one of the things, or one of the most disheartening things that I have seen about being a Christian content creator in the space is that people's hearts are darker than what they let on. And the reason why I say that is because sometimes you'll get in your comments or you'll have people to say, "Hey, I want you to just preach Jesus, preach Jesus, and preach Jesus," but it'll be some of those heavy Jesus pieces of content that you produce. They don't watch, and they actually they watch more of the juicy things, like the stuff we're going to talk about tomorrow, the stuff we talked about earlier this week, um, all that other stuff. That's what they, excuse me, that's what they run to. But then when I make a sermon as to why you need Jesus, or make a video on why you need Jesus, it's almost like crickets, and it's like, wow, like so seeing the heart behind some of the people who say they love Jesus, or who you just understand that everything isn't what it seems or whatever. But the reason why, to answer your question, why we created the channel is exactly what I said. So people can understand that they can still be Christians even in today's time. God called us to be faithful. He didn't say until 2018. He didn't say till 2022. He called us to be faithful, and that's what we need to be.
I feel
So
that
yeah.
for sure. I think the cool thing about that too is like I feel like to some degree why it was so difficult for me to want to cling to my salvation or some sense of a higher power is because I was like, I don't think my faith fits in this. Meaning, like, I don't know if what can my faith attribute to this. When it's like, it's not so much about my faith attributing to like every circumstance, but like my faith being a reason how I respond to the things that are happening around me. And I found that once it came a sense of, I want to call it like heavenly like practicality, it seemed a little bit more real, where it was like we can talk about like, oh, like, we don't talk about sex in church. We could talk about like we could talk about like the real life conversations when we talk about like mental health. We can have these conversations in these deep, impactful conversations that everybody else gets to have. Like those that aren't even Christians, like they can have. And I think like, especially when we live in a fallen world, why not us participate in these conversations but just not have the same stances? You know what I'm saying? So that's being in the world but not of it. And I think that when we don't lend a voice to these circumstances, especially for our kids, man, they gonna get educated. It's just a matter of who do you want educating them? You know what I'm saying? So I think it's dope that like you and your wife have been able to like create a space in which that it's just like we are going to talk about good, bad, ugly, and indifferent, but we gonna keep it Christly. You know what I'm saying? Not churchy, but Christly. As far as how to respond to it. So I've always admired that. I pop in every once in a while, and I whether it's live, sometimes I'll have to catch them minutes later. But I've always appreciated this, not only the stances that you guys have taken, especially as being disciples, but not being afraid to touch these subjects, because my Savior was more than fearless to touch these subjects, touch these people, and speak to these people. Why not we speak to the things that are happening in these circumstances? So just wanted to give
Yeah,
you your just wanted to give you your flowers real quick, let you know like I see you, and I appreciate this. You know what
yeah,
I'm saying? So
I appreciate it, man. Yeah, because it is it. I can be very polarizing. Out of the two of us, I'm a very polarizing figure. Nikki is she says what she means, and she means what she says. However, she could be very nice with it, so to speak. Me, I'm a very polarizing person. I say what I mean what I say. I am fully aware when I say something that, hey, you know what? There's a good population that ain't gonna rock with this. However, there's a good population that will rock with this, and for every one person that can't rock with it, there's five more people that will. And so, I just, I don't know if this is, no, I don't know. I do know that this is one of the trade-offs of being raised in by a military father is that he shot it straight. There was no gray area because um, within life, you can have some gray areas, but then there's a lot of areas where it's just it's black and white, cut and dry. It is what it is, and so um, I learned to be held accountable. I learned that ain't nobody coming to save me. And when I say ain't nobody coming to save me, meaning nobody in society is going to come save me from the burden of being a man. I'm going to have to produce and I'm going to have to be a man. Ain't nobody coming to save me. And I learned that at a young age. If you don't work, you don't eat. All right. And that's a biblical principle. Right. And that's universal. That's just not just that don't just apply to Christians. That applies to everybody. You know, men don't work, you don't eat. All right. Now, some work may be easier than others, but if you don't work, you don't eat. All right. And but anyways, I learned to shoot it straight at a very young age, and I'm still that same way. I learned to be consistent and be the same person wherever wherever I am. Whether you see me in church, whether you see me at work, whether you see me in school, whether you see me at the mall, I am that same dude. I'm that same Jermaine because I believe it takes too much energy, far too much energy to do the switch up thing. But you know, I'm gonna be this way, this here, and I'm gonna be this way. No, you get the same Jermaine anytime you see him. So if you was to see me on the street, I'll be talking to you just like I am talking to you right now because I am that same person. But but you know, I forgot what I was going to say. But just basically being raised by a military father, being very being polarizing. I think that's okay. I think that's okay. Everybody's not gonna like you. You know, I have this little thing.
We act like Jesus wasn't like sarcastic or like kind of a jerk sometimes. Like he was a man of peace, but man, like some of the things talk about if you mislead the youth, it is better to tie a millstone to your neck and throw it. That's not like you can't preach that on Sundays.
No, that's not.
You can't preach that on Sundays and ask for offering. Like that don't that don't work like that. Not at all.
Calling the Sanhedrin and the Pharisees, you brutal vipers. That was John the Baptist that said that. I'm like, listen, yo, you brutal vipers. You know, that's harsh. So to speak. And Jesus said, you know, when he got mad and started flipping over tables in the temple, and said that, you know, y'all made it a den of thieves. He called everybody to their face thieves, you know, that they were thieves. So yeah, man. So I think that it is perfectly okay to be that way. You know, I still season it with grace and in love, but my stance is still going to be my stance. I am who I am. And you know, and there's a little moniker that I have going on our channel of I really don't care, because I really don't. I've never been a people pleaser. I never will start. I'm not going to start being a people pleaser now. There's going to be some people that are offended by what you say, no matter what you say or how you say it. And to all those trolls or anybody else, I always say, if you're offended, I really don't care. And the reason why I say that is because we were ridiculed for teaching our children the Bible. We were called sick. We were saying that we were poisoning our kids. We were saying that we were brainwashing our children and that we should be reported and all this other stuff just because we were teaching them what thus saith the Lord. And from that point on, my mentality was, you know what? This YouTube stuff is crazy. Like, it can get wild. And you know what? This is what I got to say for all those people, for all the trolls or anybody else. If you're offended by what I do, about what I say, I really don't care, because at the end of the day, you're not going to be satisfied whether I say it this way or that way. Because if I do it that way, then it's going to become your channel. And last I checked, you ain't paying no bills.
I know that's right. Shoot. Absolutely.
Yeah.
So, brother, we're gonna get you out of here soon, but you know, we gotta ask you the couple of quick hitters. As far as like, you know, this is just for like, you know, jovial, like comedic purposes, where we ask you like either wars and stuff like that. You ready for the quick hitters, my brother?
I'm with you, bro. Rapid fire. Let's go.
All right, let's see. Doritos or Pringles?
Doritos all day. I grew up on Doritos. Matter of fact, I just had me some Doritos. I grew up on Doritos all day.
Gotcha. No. Any specific flavor though? Is it like what flavor we rocking with?
The traditional nacho cheese.
Have you tried the sweet chili ones yet? You ain't rock with those yet?
And they man, that stuff just mess with your intestines. I ain't fooling with it. I
don't know what that means. I'm 28, so like I don't know what an intestine is just yet.
Oh, Me and my wife, we talked about that the other day. It was a little joke, man. Like, I am 40. My wife is 39. She'll be 40 here in a couple months. And but your stuff starts changing. You start realizing, I can't eat as much spice as I used to. I can still do it, but I'm gonna have to take me some Tums, something by bedtime. Rolaids, Pepto Bismol, because it just changes. It doesn't matter what your health condition is, man. Just your organs and all that stuff changes when you start getting to like 38. Woo! And you're 29, right? 29 or 30?
28, but you were just funny. Like, I was just telling my partner wants to switch to veganism, and I was like, where that Bible at? I don't know where that's gonna fit in my spiritual plans, but like, but yeah, I don't know if I'm ready for that necessarily, but yeah. So I'll let you know how that works out for me. I might have to like do like a legit daily vlog where it's just like day 4 of not loving myself, not having.
Listen, man, I'm gonna tell you this, especially athletes, man. A lot of them, there's a lot of people who are vegan, but they're like 80% vegan, and the reason why is because they learned that the athletes are getting more knee and joint injuries because they don't have some of the what is it? They don't have the minerals needed from some of the meaty substances that they would consume that allows lubrication of the joints, if you will. And yeah, so honestly, if you're gonna do that, and I look like I'd be the last one to talk about who need to be vegan, who don't need to be. But I'm telling you, if you're gonna be vegan, you better mix some meat up in there somewhere so you can have some lubrication of those joints. Because and then also too, vegans go to the hospital more than anybody else. I didn't realize that, but it was true. I found out about 3 years ago. Vegans go to the hospital.
See, that's all I needed. Like, she's gonna watch this when we get out of here, and I'll be like, look, this black man I met on the internet told me, I ain't rocking with that. We not doing that.
They get sick more than anybody else. And I was like, wow, that man, yeah, but yeah.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely not. Mm-mm. But we'll hold on to that conversation for a later time.
It's all about balance, man. Balance.
No, balance. Yeah, absolutely. You said they get sick more than anybody else. Oh no, I can't. Absolutely not. My next quick hitter. This will let me know if you're like a candy appreciator. Skittles or Starburst?
Starburst.
Really? So you've never had a cavity? You've never had like a cavity in your life where like that thing could pull out like the cap in your tooth? You can just eat Starburst like it's nothing. All right.
Yeah, I have, man, but I'm not. I would rather do the Starburst. That whole. I don't know. I'm more Starburst. I've had cavities before, but not many. I've had many cavities in my life, maybe 2. That's it. And so I would prefer Starburst. In my opinion.
Even that. Skittles make you eat like 3 Skittles and you're dehydrated. Like, you got cotton mouth out the wazoo. Like, if you flick your tooth on your tongue, you might start a fire in your mouth. Like, it's just, I don't know what it is about Skittles, man. It just, oh my gosh. My next quick hitter. This will let me know music wise where you fall on this. If you had to pick sonically, we'll go sonically, marketing, and then like just image wise, who we rocking with, Kanye or Pharrell?
Kanye. I would say Kanye.
Oh man.
Yeah.
We still rocking with Ye after the slavery was a choice comment, or like or just Pharrell just didn't do it for you?
I'll talk that up to his mental illness. Other than that, man, I'll go with Kanye, man. I think I can get down with the way maybe Kanye dresses a little bit more than Pharrell. I don't know. I don't have nothing against him really. But I think sonically, I would go with Kanye. Kanye just has those unique beats. Sometimes you'd be like, "Whoa, man, how did you come up with that?" Pharrell too. Pharrell nice, he, especially when he came out with, He did the Clips beats and all the other stuff. I believe he did that, right? Didn't he do some of the Clips
Oh yeah,
beats?
he's if not, I feel like he was
Didn't
like
he
their
make?
main producer. I would say he kind of had like a
Yeah,
Ye to Nas relationship with the Clips. So I think so. They just actually did a they actually just did a festival out here not too long ago, the Something in the
yeah,
Water tour.
water,
Um,
something.
but yeah, for sure, for
Yeah,
sure.
and that whole question about no malice, how's he going to navigate that with his faith now? Like that's a little different now. That's a little different because he was, with him and Pusha T, and now he's doing music. It's like a lot of people are like, well, how's he? That's a good question. How is he? So I don't know. Yet to be seen. Just pray for the brother, regardless whether you agree or not. Pray for the dude.
Yeah, absolutely. And I feel like we all kind of have like that within us and ourselves where we have that I mean our flesh and our spirit. So I mean, I'm not saying that. I want to be clear. I'm not saying that Pusha T is the flesh, but I think like we all not but. However, I think we all kind of have that within ourselves. So like it's just a realistic like you just gonna have to deal with this in the real world too. You know what I'm saying? So
Yeah,
um
man. It's that thing because you got family. You know how it is. Like he just happens to be on stage, but we all got family. You got that brother, that sister, or whatever that may not live the same way you want to, but there's always that constant pressure, or that friction, or whatever. And how do you navigate those spaces? There's some days where you win, and there's some days where you lose. His just happens to be on stage. You know what I mean? So, um, yeah,
absolutely.
I'm not saying be lukewarm by any means. I'm trying to say is just be gracious when you're dealing with people who are trying to navigate spaces on a in front of the camera, if you will.
Absolutely. Yeah, because there's plenty of people struggling off camera. Some of them try to act like they don't even exist. Like, what? I don't have no unsaved people. Yes, you do. It's called your spouse. Be quiet. Like, oh
or
my
your
goodness.
or, your, or
Or
yourself.
yourself. You know what I'm saying? So it's just like, calm down. It's all right. We can pass this judgment on to somebody that's not a public figure. Um, so I got another music question. If you had to pick Missy Elliott or Janet Jackson, who we rocking with?
Janet Jackson, musically or looks wise? Because if it's
We
looks,
talking we talking music. Look, bro, you married. I ain't trying to get you in trouble,
yeah,
dog. Like
if we're talking sonically, uh, I would have to say Missy Elliott.
okay. All right. I was about to say, I mean, Missy got a lot of like she brought Timbaland on. If I'm not mistaken, it's Tim, Sierra, Jasmine Sullivan. Just like what she produces, even for people too. Um, like how many sisters do you know that was like, I'm gonna wear this trash bag with pride, and I'm just gonna do it. And like even like her whole swag is just like different. Like I don't know what it is with Missy. I don't know.
She's unapologetically her.
Yes, absolutely. And like
I,
I'll have to send you this video clip. There's a video of like Timbaland who like, makes beats for Missy and stuff and told him like she kicks me out the room when she mixes music and like she's like she doesn't want me anywhere near that process. I'm like, she know what she want. Ain't nothing wrong with that. Shoot.
wow,
Yep.
yeah. Send that to me, bro.
I got you. I got you. It'd be like Tim, you got platinum, and you let her kick you out. Okay, all right, I respect this. Shoot, but it works for them. So, um, let's see. You are going to a concert, or better yet, you're like kind of orchestrating this concert. You have an opener, a mid, and a closer. Meaning, who's opening up the concert, who's following them up, and who's closing the concert out. Who is performing at this concert, dead or alive?
Um, are we just talking about Christian? Or are we just talking about period? Just
Look,
anybody?
man, look, this is your concert. Like, you could have, I don't know, bro. You can have,
Shoot,
you can have,
okay.
you could have Eddie Murphy do his old R&B album in that mug if you wanted to. That is completely up. That is your prerogative. That is your business. Ain't none of mine. Shoot.
If we're gee, if we're talking about who to open up, there's this young brother out of Chester, PA called Neville Heiss. I would say this dude, Neville Heist, is a he's a very gifted brother in the faith. And Neville Heist, I don't know if y'all seen him on Sway in the Mornings, Sway challenge or whatever, but that dude, he is, I would say him open up. Um the main event, I would say, and this may be dating me, but hey, I is who I is. I'm an 80s kid. The main event, I would say Mob Deep. Mob Deep. Main event. And bro, what year were you born? 94?
Yes, I was born in 9-4. Absolutely. I was born in 9-4.
So one of their hits was actually made the year you were born, called Shook Ones Part 2.
Oh yeah, yeah. I know me a little bit of Mob for sure, for sure, for
Okay.
sure.
So I would say Neville Heist to open up, Mob Deep is the main, and to close it out, I would say The Firm. Now The Firm was comprised of a dude by the name of Cormega, AZ, and Foxy Brown and Nas. I believe that was the foe. I don't know if you remember The Firm, bro. That was a 90s reference
Oh,
right
I
there.
grew up. I grew up on. When I say I grew up on like old hip hop, not old because to me it came out. I was listening to it when I was young. I grew up on Kim, Rock Kim, not Lil Kim. Grew up on Rock Kim, Nas, Jay, Outkast. Yeah. So I know me a little bit of The Firm. I know me of Foxy. Wasn't allowed to listen to all her music. We weren't Christian growing up, but that don't mean everything Foxy was. That don't mean everything Foxy was saying was for the young Casper to be listening to. Absolutely not.
No.
For sure.
Have you lusted? Have you lusted? But that would be it, man. That would be, so Neville Heist to open, Mob Deep is the main, and the close, it would be The Firm. It'd be The Firm.
All right. All right.
Yeah, that'd be a
You
fun
got
concert.
you're having dinner with 5 different people, dead or alive. Matter of fact, your wife can come too. So you still got your 5, but you're having dinner with 5 different people. Who is at this dinner table with you?
Well, first and foremost, Jesus. First and foremost, Jesus. Because listen, if you mess around with Jesus, you don't need the other foe. Listen, but I would love to have my wife there too. So that's 2 people out the way. Um, the third person.
Oh no. You good. You got Sister Nikki plus the 5. So you can have Jesus, 4 other people, and your wife, y'all are 1. So she gotta come shoot.
Okay, okay. I would say Jesus. I would say Enoch, because Enoch walked so closely with God that he just was taken away in a whirlwind. So I would say Enoch, because I'm like, yo, dude, what was you doing to get taken away? Because there's some days where you be like, you know what, Jesus, any day now, any day. Um, I would say Enoch. Dang, there's so many interesting people. Dog, I would say MLK for sure. I would like to talk with him.
All right.
And I'm actually related to him. That's my last name, King, and we're related. He's a distant cousin. Um, so those 3, if I had to pick, dead or alive, I would say there's so many important people. There's so many important people. This is hard. Um, I would. You know what? We got Jesus, we got Enoch, we got MLK. I would say, um, dog. I would say Michael. I would say Michael Jackson. No, man, he has a little. No, I would say Tupac, and who's this 5th person? Because I know I'm gonna miss somebody, and I would love to. I would love to. And I'd have to go back and re-say it. 5 important people. So we got Jesus, Enoch, MLK, Tupac, um, dead or alive. There's more important people, man. There's more people who have impacted this community or society. But I would say, man, I would really love to meet Kobe Bryant. That's my 5. So we got Jesus, Enoch, MLK, Tupac, and Kobe Bryant. I almost started with Margaret Singer. Margaret Singer with Planned Parenthood just because I want to pick her brain and see where her how she got to where she is or how she got to thinking the way she is. But I would say those are my five, man. Those are my five.
Gotcha, gotcha. And my last and final question is: if you had to see somebody or people on the Kid Casper podcast, what who would they be? But your answer has got to be somebody or people you can get on here essentially. So it's season 3. You gotta give me 3 suggestions as far as who would you like for me to have a dialogue with.
Well, there was a young lady actually in the chat earlier. Her name is Chelsea. Chelsea. Chelsea's live line. Her name is Chelsea Carter. Um, I think that it would be dope if you did a collab with her, just because she's a young lady that is a zennial, and I love the fact that she seems to have a zeal and a love for Jesus, even at an early age. Being a zennial, because zennials, man, they got a rough way to go. They are worse than they're worse than us millennials, so to speak, and morally, not holding the Christian values as much. Let her pick her brain. You know, I think that you would do a dope job with doing that. Three people. Who? This is now. Let's maybe Seiko Woods. I think you should get Seiko Woods. Seiko Woods.
You
Yep.
have a way for me to have a conversation with Seiko Woods?
Yep. Yep. You know what that is, right?
Yes, yes, I know Mr. BCV. Yes, I'm very familiar with that
Conversation with
program.
him. I think it'd be different than what you think.
All
I
right.
think great. Him.
That I might have to try. I think that might have to be a Patreon only episode, and like,
No,
I
I think y'all are gonna have more common ground than what you think, bro. Seiko's a really cool brother, man. Y'all may not agree on some stuff, but there are a lot. I think there are a lot of things that y'all do agree on. I think y'all would agree on. I think that you should have him on. I think that'd be good. I would suggest Dre, but Dre from Harrison Family Vlogs. Toss between him and somebody else. I would say definitely those two, Chelsea, and I would say Seiko. And dog, I gotta think of somebody else that's gonna kind of like maybe be an interesting interview. You know what? It would be a toss between Dre from Harrison Family Values or Corey Minor, my good friend Corey Minor down here in Dallas from Smart Christian Channel.
okay.
You know who Corey Minor is?
Uh, Vaguely. I think I've had some run-ins with the Smart Christian channel in the comment sections a couple of times. That would also be another interesting conversation, to say the least.
Yeah, you're a dope brother, man. I think that y'all would. I don't think you would have problems. I think it was between him and Dre. Does a lot of honorable mentions, man, like my brother Maurice, Von Saunders Ministries as well. But Maurice from All God Everything, I think he will be dope. But if I had to narrow it down to like three, it would be Chelsea from Chelsea's Live Line, Seiko Woods from BCV, Ministries Podcast or whatever. And I would say that the Smart Christian Channel, Corey. I would say those three, bro.
All
I would
right,
say
cool. All righty then. So first off, thank you, brother, for hanging out with me for as long as you did, man. This was dope. This was a very insightful conversation, to say the least. Just not even that. It's just good to talk to you, man. It's good to see you.
oh for sure.
I know it's been a minute for us to actually get this done, but like this was dope, man. If there's anything that you have coming up in the future, as far as like future projects, things that you want people to kind of pay attention and you'd like to spotlight, or just to let us know, what can we expect from that Christian Fam channel in the near future? The screen is yours.
Yeah, man. Well, we have our live going on tomorrow with myself and my beautiful wife Nikki tomorrow at 7:15 Eastern. Sorry, no, Central Standard Time, 8:15 Eastern Standard Time. We'll be talking about the whole situation with Senator Tierra Mack and the whole twerking upside down in the sand. We'll be talking about that at it's a pretty weighty discussion, so to speak. I have some collaborations going on, so be sure to subscribe to our channel, because what I'll do is some of those collabs are on our channel, That Christian Fam. Some of those collabs are on other people's channel, like Casper's channel or whatever. I have some collabs coming up with Honestly Speaking, with Chelsea's Live Line. I don't know if you know who Honestly Speaking is. Dope sister in the faith from Philadelphia. I'll be on her channel, I think, later on this month. And yeah, man, I am really thinking about doing a project. I don't want to give it away just yet. But I have a project in the works that's coming. And I've been heavily in the lives over the last year or so, but I do want to start dabbling back into some of the pre-recorded videos, edited videos or whatever, because I have a pretty healthy one coming out about power couples. So y'all stay tuned.
Power couples. Oh man. All right. So man, that sounds like a lot, and I'll definitely be on the lookout for that. Everybody, please do me a favor. I'll put the link in the comments and the description of this video to follow this brother and his family, and just so you can kind of keep track of like what he's got to come. But thank you everybody for tuning in today. This was dope. I will be back here on. I got my calendar right in front of me. It looks like Tuesday. Looks like I'll be back here on Tuesday. I think I'll be back here on Tuesday. I'm gonna be back here on Tuesday. If I'm not mistaken, 7 p.m. Y'all subscribed. Hopefully y'all are subscribed. The stream ain't open yet, but it will. The alerts will be on there. Thank you for tuning in tonight. For those that are going to be watching this later, for those that are going to listen to this later, just always remember you are beautiful, blessed, beloved. You know what I'm saying? Always remember you are beautiful, blessed, and beloved. Raisins still don't go in potato salad though. We don't. That something about that practice is demonic. Brother, do you put question? Do you put mayonnaise in your peas by chance?
No. I don't do the raisins in the potato salad, and I don't do. Oh my gosh, you're gonna make me throw up. I don't do mayonnaise in the peas. Who does that?
We'll talk about that when I get out of here. We'll do. When we get off live. We'll talk about that.